I Have a Dream by copyright 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. Speech by the Reverend Martin Luther King at the March on Watches. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 5 score years ago, as a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand, today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous degree is a great beacon of light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who have been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still badly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of constitutions and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall here. This note was a promise to all men, yes, black men as well as white men. We guarantee the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on its promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check to which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great values of opportunity of this nation. So we come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and secure of justice. We also come to this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drugs of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit paths of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It will be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963, or should I say 2020, is not the end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to be blown off steam and will not be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro and all of those in minorities is granted his citizens' rights. This whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerge. And that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the worn threshold which leads into the place of justice. In the process of granting our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct a struggle on a high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. This marvelous new militance which has engaged to the Negro community must not lead us to distrust all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that the destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that the freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors, police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways or the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a similar ghetto to a large one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped from the adulthood and robbed of their dignity by signs of starting for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negroes in Mississippi and all around the United States cannot vote, and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing to do for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied. We will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faithful. That unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South California, South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will change. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, even though we face difficulty of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live to our true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day these red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners, will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with heat of injustice, sweltering with heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not judge by their skin color. They will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious racism, with the government having his lips dripping the words of interposition and notification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I would go back to the Southwest. With this faith, we will be able to hew out the mountains of despair and the stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jungling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my father died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the Highlands, Alleghanies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the Colvin Slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountains of Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountains of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and mountaintop in Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring all across the world. When we allow freedom to ring, we will let it ring from every city and every hamlet, from every state and every city. We'll be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of the old Negro spirit. Free at last, great God Almighty, we're all free at last.